The air crackled with anticipation, millions glued to their screens. The fate of a nation hung in the balance. Election night 2024, not just another election, a referendum on America's soul. The tension was palpable, every vote counted. Battleground states held the key: Florida, Pennsylvania, Arizona, each result a seismic tremor. As the night wore on, a pattern emerged, a red tide rising. Whispers turned to murmurs, then a roar. 4 years had passed since the tumultuous 2020 election, 4 years of simmering resentment. The political chasm had only widened. Trump's supporters, a sea of red hats, yearned for a return to greatness, a strong man who promised to restore their vision of America. His detractors, a mosaic of diversity, feared a threat to democracy, an erosion of rights, a descent into authoritarianism. This wasn't just about policies, it was about identity, about values, about the very soul of a nation. Few had predicted Trump's return. The political landscape was skeptical, and many experts doubted his ability to stage a comeback. He had been written off, dismissed, ridiculed. The media and political pundits were quick to declare his political career over. Yet he had tapped into a deep well of anger and frustration. The American people were disillusioned, feeling left behind by the political elite. His rallies were a spectacle of defiance. They were more than just political events. They were a movement, a call to action for those who felt unheard. A middle finger to the establishment. His supporters saw him as a champion of their cause, someone who would fight for their interests, a rejection of the status quo. They were tired of the same old politics and wanted real change. The media, he claimed, was the enemy of the people. He accused them of spreading fake news and being biased against him. The Democrats, socialists hell-bent on destroying America. He painted them as a threat to the American way of life. His words, however inflammatory, resonated with his base. They believed in his message and saw him as their voice. He promised to bring back jobs, to revive industries that had been neglected for years, to restore law and order, to make communities safe again, to make America great again. His slogan became a rallying cry for millions. And against all odds, he did it. He defied expectations and proved his critics wrong, securing a victory that many thought impossible. His supporters celebrated in the streets, their faith in him vindicated. It was a moment of triumph, not just for Trump, but for the movement he had inspired. In his victory speech, he promised to continue fighting for the American people, to keep pushing for the changes they wanted. His campaign had been a roller coaster, filled with highs and lows, but in the end, it was his unwavering determination and connection with his base that led him to victory. The road to victory was long and arduous, but for Trump and his supporters, it was worth every step. As the final results flashed across the screen, a collective gasp swept the nation. Trump had won, again. In Trump strongholds, celebrations erupted. Fireworks lit up the sky, chants of USA, USA echoed through the streets. But in other corners of America, there was only stunned silence, disbelief, despair. Tears flowed freely as the enormity of the result sank in. The nation was a tapestry of conflicting emotions, joy and despair, hope and fear, victory and defeat. Section 5. The economy, a second wind, or a house of cards? This question has been at the forefront of many debates, discussions, and analyses over the past few years. The economy, a living, breathing entity, has shown signs of both resilience and fragility. Trump's supporters hailed his economic policies as a resounding success. They celebrated the perceived victories, attributing the nation's financial health to his leadership and decisions. They pointed to the booming stock market, the low unemployment rates, and the surge in manufacturing. These indicators were often highlighted as proof of a thriving economy, a testament to the effectiveness of the policies implemented. The surge in manufacturing was particularly noteworthy. Factories buzzed with activity, and warehouses were filled with products ready to be shipped across the country and beyond. This industrial revival was seen as a cornerstone of economic strength, but critics warned of a bubble about to burst. They cautioned that the apparent prosperity was built on shaky foundations, susceptible to collapse under pressure. They argued that Trump's tax cuts had only benefited the wealthy, creating a wider gap between the rich and the poor. The financial relief provided to the upper echelons of society did little to alleviate the struggles of the average American. Meanwhile, the trade war with China was hurting American businesses. Tariffs and trade barriers disrupted supply chains, leading to increased costs and uncertainty for companies relying on international trade. The truth, as always, lay somewhere in between. The economy was a complex beast, influenced by a myriad of factors. It was neither entirely robust nor entirely fragile, but a mix of both. The economy was a complex beast, influenced by a myriad of factors. Consumer confidence, global markets, technological advancements, and political decisions all played a role in shaping the financial landscape. Only time would tell the true impact of Trump's policies. As the months and years passed, the long-term effects would become clearer, revealing whether the economy had indeed found a second wind, or if it was merely a house of cards waiting to collapse. Section 6. Healthcare in the balance. Will Obamacare survive? Healthcare had been a central issue in the campaign. Trump had vowed to repeal and replace Obamacare, which he called a disaster. His supporters cheered his promise to provide better, cheaper healthcare for everyone. But his critics feared that millions of Americans would lose their health insurance. The fate of Obamacare hung in the balance. Would Trump succeed in dismantling his predecessor's signature achievement? Or would the Affordable Care Act, flawed as it was, survive another 4 years? Section 7. Immigration: building walls or building bridges. Immigration was another hot-button issue. Trump had made it a cornerstone of his campaign, promising to build a wall on the US-Mexico border and to crack down on illegal immigration. His supporters applauded his tough stance, arguing that it was necessary to protect American jobs and security. But his critics accused him of xenophobia and racism. The debate over immigration was a microcosm of the larger debate over America's identity. What did it mean to be American? And who got to decide? Section 8. America First: Foreign Policy in the Trump Era 2.0. Trump's foreign policy had been unpredictable, to say the least. He had alienated allies, cozied up to dictators, and taken bold steps that left the world in a state of constant speculation. He withdrew from international agreements, such as the Paris Climate Accord and the Iran nuclear deal, which had significant implications for global diplomacy and environmental policies. His supporters admired his willingness to challenge the status quo and to put America first. They saw his actions as a necessary shakeup of a stagnant system, believing that his approach would ultimately benefit the United States. But his critics feared that he was undermining America's global standing. They argued that his erratic behavior and disregard for traditional alliances could lead to long-term damage to international relationships. The world watched with a mixture of fascination and apprehension. Every move he made was scrutinized, and the global community was left wondering what his next step would be. What would a second Trump term mean for global stability? Would his policies continue to disrupt the established order, or would he find a way to balance his America First agenda with the needs of the international community? Would he continue to upend the world order? The potential for further upheaval was a constant concern for many, as they pondered the long-term effects of his unconventional approach. Or would he moderate his approach? Some speculated that a second term might bring a more tempered Trump, one who had learned from the challenges of his first term and was ready to engage more constructively with the world. The future of American foreign policy under Trump remained uncertain, but one thing was clear. His presidency had already left an indelible mark on the global stage. The world would continue to watch, waiting to see how the next chapter of this unpredictable era would unfold. Section 9. A Nation Divided. The Scars of a Contentious Election. The election had exposed the deep divisions in American society, divisions along racial, economic, and ideological lines, divisions that ran deeper than ever before. Trump's victory had only exacerbated these divisions. His supporters felt vindicated while his detractors felt marginalized and unheard. The question now was, could America heal? Could it bridge the chasm that separated its citizens? Or was it destined to remain a house divided against itself? Section 10. The Unpredictable Future. What awaits America? As Trump prepared for his second term, the future seemed as uncertain as ever. Would he be a different president this time around? Would he learn from his mistakes? Or would he double down on his most divisive policies? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain: America was in for a bumpy ride. Section 11. A Turning Point in History. The Legacy of 2024. The 2024 election would be remembered as a turning point in American history, a moment when the nation decided its fate, a moment that would shape the future for generations to come. Whether Trump's second term would be a success or a failure, only history could judge. But one thing was for sure: America would never be the same.